Hi everybody, Josh Knight the First here again with another episode of Exade Replay, coming to you with episode 25 of the series. Let's get right into it. So here we are at the beginning of a new arc, a new opening, and yes, we are happy to see that Toei listened to us, and Excite by Daichi Miura is back as the opening here. We've seen that they've cut things a little bit differently. It's more or less the opening that we've seen before, but now we see little teases of Kamen Rider Chronos, Kamen Rider Poppy, a lot of things that we're seeing there. We still see that little bit of a glitch in the system there where Kiria should be, and yeah, tugging at our heartstrings still, Toei, but we love it. We're glad to see it back. Now we can actually get into the show with confidence this week. In addition to the opening, I'm also very happy to report that even though they've added it back, well, a lot of people thought that the reason they were putting it towards the end was that they didn't have enough time to tell the story that they needed to. That's not the case here. In this episode, we got plenty of story, plenty of plot development, and we can still have the opening we want. So we see at the beginning of the episode that Hiro and Emu are kind of starting to wonder where Poppy's been the last couple of days, but they don't have a lot of time to worry about this since the CR is getting bombarded with calls of new Bugster virus outbreak. Now there's a very good reason for this. Why? The GENM Corporation is back. What are they doing? They're selling Kamen Rider Chronicle as a mass-produced game. Now, in stylistic terms, this is kind of an MMO to people. Everybody gets to take part in this large, massive player chance to beat these Bugsters in this new, very interactive game. Now, of course, nobody knows what the truth is, but as far as appeal goes, even I can understand if you saw this thing actually being played out in front of you, yeah, you'd absolutely want to jump in on this. As far as Poppy's concerned, she's being used to advertise the game, as well as being the guide to the new players who are getting into the game. Now, as far as the players are concerned, they are called ride players. They're these brown kind of redesigns of the basic Exade design that you get to become when you get into the game. What do? You fight Bugsters there in the game. Now, as far as how that actually works, they don't define how the ride players are powered up compared to everybody else. From the look of it, just like you're starting any sort of MMO, like say Final Fantasy XIV, you start at a low level, and they tell you you have to level up through the game, which just makes sense. It's a game, that's what you do. The thing about it is, they don't have a very clear set way of getting that done. For the most part, people are just wailing on Bugsters that should be, fairly low level as well, but nobody seems to actually be doing any sort of damage or actually taking one down. Now, the idea of this being an MMO further gets instilled into the new ride players when Poppy announces to everybody, oh, there are these characters called Kamen Riders in the game. If you beat them, you can power up and get new items. Yay, go for it, play on. Now, the thing about that is that's comparable to something like, say, in Final Fantasy XIV, where these things called named monsters, where if you beat them after a certain number of times, you have the potential to get loot or items and things like that. So as far as the ride players are concerned, the actual Kamen Riders are these named monsters that they can get weapons from. And as you can see over the course of the episode, a ton of people are getting in on this game. It's not just the set people that you see at the beginning of the episode. A ton of people, men, women, young, old, they're all wanting to play this game. And as such, Genmu's stock is rising and rising. Of course, this doesn't go unnoticed by Taiga, so he decides to go ahead and check in on it. Now, funny enough, when both Hiro and Taiga and Saiba Nico go to the GENM Corporation to question Amagasaki about why things are going on the way they are, why did they release Kamen Rider Chronicle, and why did they have Poppy back, Amagasaki's very suave about this, which is in keeping with his character. One, he says, well, we can't tell you why we released Chronicle, it's a secret. The other half of that being is that he just asked Poppy to come in and be part of this game, and it was her decision. Now, it's interesting to me that he didn't take that a step further. When you think about it, Poppy is a Bugster from the Dore Mifa Beat game, and as such, she's their intellectual property. He could have pulled rank on that, but he said, no, it was her decision. So he went with the more easygoing of the two answers, even though he very easily could have pulled that on them. Now, I'm hard-pressed to talk about a major fight in this episode, since really the whole episode was fighting between these Bugsters and the new ride players. Now, we do have a Bugster here in the episode, Salty, who we now see has been powered up to level 10, since they do mention that as the Bugsters are defeated, they evolve and get stronger. Now, as such, I'm surprised that Emu decided to start off with Mighty Action X when he clearly has Mighty Brothers and all these other things at his disposal. He does use his maximum form just for a second to scare off other players, but it's interesting to me how he decided to scale that back here. And of course, Emu doesn't want to fight anybody. The last thing he'd want to see is somebody else get hurt as a result of Bugster virus. Much the same, Hiro decides that this isn't something he wants to be a part of, since this is not an operation. His first duty is a doctor before being a Kamen Rider, so he doesn't want to take any part in this at all. I would have to say the turning point for this episode was when Parado reveals to Emu what his plans were for Kamen Rider Chronicle this whole time. We see that as Emu is looking on at all the ride players wailing away using his weapons against the bugsters, Parado tells him that this is what I wanted all along. I wanted to take this away from Genmu, from Kurotodan, to have for myself, because this is our chance for bugsters to defeat humans, not the other way around, you know, going for this kind of bugster superiority vibe. Now, as far as other Rider series are concerned, we've seen that before, where the monsters have pride in their own race, shall we say. That reminds me of the Roy Mudes and Heart from Kamen Rider Drive, where they were proud of themselves and they wanted to exist on their own and show their superiority over humans. That would be in more recent times. I do wish that they'd kept the wild card angle a little bit longer, but I get it. We need a solid villain right now, and I guess Parado's the one at bat. But along with that, let's not forget, at the end of the day, Parado still wants a good game. So what does he do? He decides to join in the game after a couple of ride players have gone on a little further, and decides to thoroughly whip them using his powers. Compared to them, he's OP because he's an actual Kamen Rider and not a ride player who doesn't even have any sort of finishing move. And as a result of Paradox's well-executed rider kick, we now have 6 new deaths in the course of this series, which actually brings the total amount to 9 deaths over the course of the whole show. Now 6 at once, that's pretty good, so good job on you, Paradox. I can't believe I'm congratulating him for killing people, but, you know, whatever. What I appreciate is the even more cruel aspect of the fact that Pulpy, who is the guide to all of the new players there, bothered to not mention to them, oh yeah, there's no continues in this game, so bye, you're disappearing. Yeah, that adds an extra level of cruelty to that, and it also makes you a little bit more sympathetic towards Pulpy, since clearly she's doing this against her will. She's not the kind of person who wanted to roundaboutly or even directly bring harm to humans, but this is what her role is now. And from the looks of it, that role is going to increase going into next episode when we see very clearly at the end there, she's given the Tokimeki Crisis Gashot as well as a Buggle Driver too. This of course does lead into next episode where we will see her transform into Kamen Rider Puppy, and we'll see this fight in Kamen Rider Chronicle continue. Along with that, we also see some footage there for the preview in next episode of Dr. Kyotaro giving another press conference, because of course, the public's going to want to know about why more people are dying and how that ties into Kamen Rider Chronicle. So there's this big overarching story that we're now having to get into. Overall, I think this is a great start for this new arc here in Exade. Talking about the ride players for a second, their design is very reminiscent of the Riot Troopers from Kamen Rider Vice. Their weapons even work the same. They're kind of a baton slash gun that they use there, and they're very ineffectual against the other monsters there, so that's a clear throwback in my book. But aside from that, having all of these people fighting for supremacy against one another, but having that game framework, that's a smart distinction, putting Exade in a different category from Ryuki, which I was really worried about, but it seems that they're making their own way, so good job on that. And with all of this information, I want to hear what you guys thought about this, so let's go ahead and talk about a few things here. First, Amagasaki. What do you think his true form is? Because we hear that different voice in him. I'm pretty sure that he's got a different form than what we've seen, so what do you think he's actually going to look like? What about Kamen Rider Chronicle? Do you like the idea of the ride players being part of this game now, and do you like the design, and would you participate? And of course, what do you think about Excite being back there as the opening? Are you glad to have it back, and do you wish they'd done it sooner? You guys can tell me there in the comments below. And of course, during the week, you can talk to me over on social media. On Twitter, I'm at JoshKnight1st. This has been episode 25 of Exade Replay for episode 25 of the series, Start the New Game. I'm Josh Knight the First. I'll see you guys again next week.